Hello and welcome back to another issue of my ongoing tutorials for Midjourney art. Today I want to really quickly touch on the different lighting aspects within Midjourney. So these are important in a lot of different things because they can add a lot of mood, a lot of ambiance, a lot of direction to the pieces of the project that you want to display the most. So today we're going to cover basically, we're going to start off with where we left off last time. We're going to start off with portraits, and we're going to start off with our baseline, just typing in the prompt of a beautiful woman, and this is what it returns. Now, when you type in the basic prompt such as this, Midjourney guesses at what you want it to look like. Do you want it to be a photograph? Do you want it to be a cartoon? Do you want it to be anime, manga, sketching, whatever the case may be? It takes its best guess and displays it along with the lighting that it thinks best fits this scenario. So just like last time, once you have your base idea, the next thing to do is expand upon that and move into the actual base scene by building it out to what you actually want to display on the screen. In this case, I chose an upper half body pose, which basically shows from the belly button on up. Beautiful woman, classy clothes, full color, because I didn't want to come up with black and white photos. I wanted to have a lot of detail in it. And when you type in things like extremely detailed, what it does is it takes like a normal cloth shirt and it adds, like you see here, stitching and overlay patterns and things like that to really bring in some detail to the shot. I find it helps sell the shot, make it look a little bit more complete, as it were. And then extremely detailed, as I said, photorealistic, basically meaning I want the image to look like a normal photograph. And by using the tag photography, it is using photographic terms to compose the image. So it's thinking about aperture, depth of field, camera angle, those types of things. Those are important later on if you want to expand upon your scene and really dive down into things like the type of lens, or add depths of field, or add different camera angles, wide angle shots, etc. We can get into those in a future tutorial, but today it's about lighting. So once you have your base scene set, the next step is to go in and start controlling the lighting. The most basic lighting that it likes to use is what it calls studio lighting. So this would be a tag that you add at the very end, just comma studio space lighting, just like I have down here. And what that is going to do for you is it's going to give you basically a two light type scenario. There's a light that's up to the upper right of the subject, and a subject light that is off to the left. The one that's up on the upper right here is what they call the key light. It's the bright light that covers most of the subject. And then on the left is a dimmer light that they call a fill light. And what that does is it reduces the shadows that are on the subject. If you only had a single light, the shadows on the left would be much darker, much deeper, and you would lose a lot of detail in it. So by using a lower powered fill light, you get to lessen the shadows but still maintain some, and thereby give more detail to the subject. Okay, so that's an example of studio lighting. The next example is what they call dramatic lighting. Now this is a singular light, typically up above the subject at a 45-degree angle pointing down to the right. And what it does is there is no fill light in this case. So as you can see, the shadows here are much darker, much deeper, and it adds a much more contrast to the photo. So you're giving it, quote unquote, a lot more drama. So that's something that you can do as well in your images. Next one is backlighting. Now this is typical studio lit portrait, but what's been added here is a light behind the subject. Now, Midjourney is not very, it's hard to tell Midjourney what to do with lights. So it will either point a light at the back of the head of the subject, or in this case, it threw a light on the background. Now, what the backlighting does in terms of your image is it gives some separation between your subject and the background. Makes them stand out a little bit, makes it just pop a little bit more. So that is an idea as to what backlighting does, or backlit, as Midjourney likes to call it. So the next thing in here is Moody Lighting. Now, Moody Lighting is very similar to dramatic lighting. Moody Lighting is just, but it takes the key light and it makes it less intense. So you don't have as much in the way of shadows on the left-hand side. So it's not as contrasty as the dramatic lighting is. So it's just a simple thing to keep in mind. If you want to try different types of lighting, if you want to give a different atmosphere to what you're doing, Moody Lighting is a different setup. And we'll go into some other ones here that are similar to this, but not quite. Like our next one here is what we call atmospheric lighting. And what atmospheric lighting does is it actually will change the colors of the light around the person to create more of an atmosphere, to create a sense of mystery. Or if you have a lot of elements in the image, not just a portrait, but if you have a lot of elements, what is typically happening in these is you have it'll take pieces from the elements. So for example, if you have red lanterns and yellow candles and blue neon, it will take bits of pieces of that lighting and apply it to the main subject within your image. All right, so our next one here is what's called natural lighting. Now, natural lighting, again, is very similar to studio lighting, but it's using a singular light source that is heavily diffused. And when I say diffused, what that basically means is that the light is very soft. It's not harsh, it's very spread out. So it takes a singular light source, and it's like if you take a flashlight and you put a piece of cloth in front of it, like a white t-shirt or something, and you put that in front of the flashlight, it takes that harsh light from the flashlight and it basically filters it and makes it a lot softer. So that's what you have here, is the natural light coming in. Typically, one of the reasons why a lot of artists will shoot people, if they don't have studio lights, they'll shoot them in front of a window or something along those lines, because basically the sun is one big diffused light source. Now, just on a quick side note on this particular image, if you look under her left eye, you'll see a small triangle of light that is caused by the angle of light coming in. Now, if you ever hear the term Rembrandt lighting, this is basically what this means, is that the light comes in and brushes across the left cheek and makes, or the opposite cheek, and makes a small triangle of light. So that triangle of light is called Rembrandt lighting. Now, the next image we have is what they call Highkey lighting. Now, Highkey lighting is used a lot in fashion photography. It's used mainly in fashion photography and for doing anything that you would do on like billboards or magazines or things along those lines. And what it is basically it's a very harsh light. Like the last one we looked at was a soft diffused light. This was a very harsh light, and it creates very hard shadows on people and makes very defined lines. So if you have certain models are great within highlight or Highkey lighting, certain models are not. So you have to, if they have defined features, then Highkey lighting works really well. If they have more general, softer features, then Highkey lighting isn't something that would be very flattering to your subject. So the opposite of Highkey Lighting is Lowkey Lighting. And as you can see, it takes a dimmer light. It's basically studio lighting like before, but you're talking about a dimmed down set of lights on the person. It gives a much more subtle, much more sultry kind of look to the image. And if you're looking at creating sultry kind of images, Lowkey Lighting is one of my favorites. And then once you have that, then you can start playing around with it, because then you can do things like adding colors to the lights. So for example, on here, I said I want the light on the left to be red and the light on the right to be green. And you can create images like this by using colored lightings. There's all kinds of different things you can do with the lights once you understand the basics of the different lighting types. You can do what they call atmospheric lighting. So for example, if you have a table with a candle on it and you want, not atmospheric, sorry, volumetric lighting. If you have a table with a single candle on it and you want that candle to be the only light source in the image, you want that candle to just flood out on the table within its natural radius. You don't want it to light up the whole room because it's not realistic. A single candle doesn't light up a whole room. There's different things you can play with that, but some of those things are things you can play with. Right now we're just working on portraits. Later on in another tutorial, if you guys want, I might get into objects and how to relate them to each other, along with colors and backgrounds and overlaying aspects such as fog and smoke or particle effects, those types of things. If you're interested, please do let me know. So, and then the next thing, basically I just want to show you, this is a sample of all the ones we went through, what they're called within Midjourney. So for example, studio would be studio lighting, dramatic would be dramatic lighting, backlit, moody lighting, etc. So let's just give you a side-by-side comparison as to what each one looks like. Now, you can pause here, you can make some, if you have any questions about all this stuff, please do feel free to leave them down in the comments. I am more than happy to hear from you guys and adjust my my future tutorials accordingly. Another thing here is just to go over a couple extra things with Midjourney and lighting is situational in Midjourney. So experiment a lot. And what I mean by situational is if you have a portrait scene like we just did, the lighting is going to look one way. If you have a city scene, the lighting is going to look completely different. If you have your subject sitting within a car, the lighting is going to be very different yet again. So experiment with different lightings with different scenes. Second thing is the lighting in Midjourney is not as advanced as we would like. I mean, I come from a background of photography and videography, so I'm used to lighting being very, very adjustable, being able to adjust the power, the angle, the amount of diffusion on the lights, how it hits the subject, is there any spill from the light? Is there not spill from the light? All those things can change and affect the overall image dramatically. And then one other thing to play with when you're doing this is try different lighting modifiers. Like the position of the light. You can say a light above the head to the right. You can say things like the light raking across the face. You can say I want a blue light or a green light or an orange light. You can try different color lights at the same time. Play around with them. See how they affect your image. That's the beautiful thing about Midjourney is you can crank out 20 different versions of an image with 20 different versions of lighting within a very short period of time. So it's a lot of fun. Anyway, I hope you found this useful. If you guys do have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please do feel free to leave them down in the comments. I absolutely love hearing from you guys. And as usual, I wish you a fantastic day. Have a great one, everybody.